And I think we are hello, 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 hello. Sean Brady on another fabulous episode with Dr. Laurel Clark, the metaphysical mindset. Dr. Clark, hello, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Sean. Good to see you.
Great to see you. I just want to take a step back. You mentioned it just a moment ago on how we met. And you and I had met at Medici Space.
Right.
Gosh, I want to say it was a year ago, but I think it's been longer than that.
2 years. I celebrated my 2-year anniversary of Medici membership in July.
And it's been 4 years for me, which has gone by like an instant.
Right.
So, wow, 2 years goes by quickly. And I just want to say thanks for those who are watching for the first time. If you saw us in any past episodes or other episodes that have been recorded, you'll know that I just love talking with Dr. Clark because I learned so much about metaphysics and a different understanding of it all. And today we're going to be talking about believing and knowing. Now, Dr. Clark, take it away because you even opened up some different things. I thought I knew what this was, but go ahead and just jump right into it. Let's get right into it, as they say.
Okay, thanks, Sean. First of all, the word metaphysics means above or beyond the physical world or the physical laws. So it has to do with mental laws, laws of creation, universal laws. Those are all different words to describe the same thing. And one thing that we talked about in a previous episode is that most people who are successful at anything, it could be business, relationships, creative endeavors, they align with universal laws, whether or not they're aware of it. And the people who are aware of it oftentimes write about it. So there's a classic success book that's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
I love that book. I have it on my shelf.
I love it too. And one of the things that he says in that book that sometimes you see on bumper stickers or calendars is whatever you can conceive and believe, you can achieve.
Yes.
So that is an expression of one of the universal laws that I learned as the law of believing and knowing. Now, one thing that's interesting to me is that I hear people talk about mindset, belief systems. You just change your beliefs, you change your life. In general, that's true.
Right. I hear a lot of that today.
Right. If it were that simple, everybody would have everything they've ever wanted. And they don't. Now, why is that?
Why is that?
Right.
Especially the things I really, really want.
Right. I think people don't really understand what believing is and the difference between believing and knowing. So the law of believing and knowing says that when you accept an idea into yourself, meaning that you can completely imagine it, like I can completely imagine what it would be like to drive this car that I want, or I can completely imagine myself standing on stage talking to 1,000 people. That's a belief. It's the completely imaged visualization of whatever the idea or the thing is that I want. So that belief is real. It's not physical yet, but it's real because the mind is real. And this is where people get confused. They say, oh, I know I could speak to 1,000 people. Well, if they've never done it, they don't know that they could do it. They might believe that they can do it, but then it takes physical activity to turn that into a physical experience. And that's where the knowing comes about. And, just one time doing something, I wouldn't even say that's knowing. It's being able to do it repeatedly and to know how it works, where the knowing comes about. And I think that's the difference between successful people and wannabe successful people, is that the successful person is willing to keep taking activity, making adjustments if they need to. And you might say, well, why do you even need the mental component? Why don't you just do it like Nike says? Well, you have to be able to imagine it and do it so that you have the inspiration to keep going, the motivation to keep going, that you even know what direction to go in. So it's working together with that mind component and the activity to move from a belief to a knowing.
All right. So there's two things I thought of. One, I thought of the movie The Matrix. And there's a quote in there, something along the lines of, it's the difference between walking the path and knowing the path. And that literally made me jump to walking on my walk this morning, my 15,000 steps a day. I literally walked down the path through the forest that I do right by my house, pretty close. And, I've walked this thing at least, I don't know, at least 36 times, if not 50 or 100. Now, the one thing I noticed, was the path always changes because, it rains, there's gravel, they re-graveled it, it moves around a little bit, but
Right.
so that's in constant change. Now, I know that path pretty well. I know where the bends are going to be. I know the height and what I have to prepare for that way, but it is constantly changing a little bit. And if it didn't, I would have rolled my ankle a couple months back and still have an ankle problem. So it made me think about that. Is that kind of what we're talking, the knowing and believing and knowing and like actually doing? Because I think I'm pretty well practiced on this path. Or am I going down the wrong path?
Well, the believing starts with what happens in your mind. So somebody, let's say, who's never walked before, and they get out of breath, if they walk around the block, they might not even try that path because they believe that they're going to run out of steam. They believe that they're going to faint. They have some belief that they can't do it, which is a belief,
Right.
just like saying, I believe I can do it. So you mentioned the other day the children's story, the little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can.
Right.
So you have to start with a belief, and that belief is an imagined picture in your mind. So even if you didn't walk 15,000 steps a day, maybe you walked 10 steps a day.
Yep.
For you to set a goal of 15,000 steps a day, someone might say, that's ridiculous. And you might say, it's not ridiculous. I'm not going to do 15,000 steps tomorrow, but I'm going to start with going around the block and see how many steps that is. Maybe it's 1,000 steps. So I start there, and then I'm going to increase it.
That's exactly where I started. So the whole reason I found an article years ago, and I've kind of looked for it, haven't found it since, but it was something, people know about 10,000 steps a day is good for optimizing health. And, I've had physical therapists say that they're stuck on this 10,000 step. There was a study from the Scottish Post Office from going back decades. And when I say decades, I think it was actually started in the 30s or 40s, 1930s or 1940s. And they did a 30 or 40 year study on their postal workers and the difference between people who rode in a vehicle or stayed inside and just standing versus the ones who were physically out moving around, delivering the mail, what their quality of life was after they retired and how much longer they lived, whether they smoked or lived in a polluted environment or their diet. The quality of life was so much better if they walked 15,000 steps a day or closer to that versus just 8, 9, or 10, which was kind of more the norm for the rest of the workers. And it was that quality of life, after they retired, that was more important to me. And of course, I remembered this story as I was sitting there and I couldn't get out of bed one day after having 5 herniated discs and I couldn't pick up my arm, going, why can't I move? I'm only in my early 40s. What is going on? But that's where I literally started. I think I walked to my mailbox in front of my house and back, and that was my exercise. So that's maybe a couple hundred steps. I could barely walk around my house, but I remember that story, and I just walked a little further, the next day and the next day, and finally I could walk around my neighborhood and my block, and then up to the front end of the neighborhood, and then a little further, and now I walk 15,000 steps a day before 10 a.m.
So that's a great example, Sean, because what I'm hearing is that when you read that article, you probably imagined what it would be like to, be in bed the rest of your life. And you probably imagined, wow, if I could walk 10,000 steps a day, I'm going to be able to be healthy and feel good and have a better quality of life.
Yeah.
So that imagining yourself having a better quality of life was the belief that you formed. And you also had the willingness to take it one step at a time, literally, instead of saying, well, I can't do it now, so why even try? And
Right.
that's where a lot of people, I think, don't understand the power of belief. You don't have to already have experience with something to take the beginning steps to get it experience. So, it's kind of a catch 22. Like, you hear people talk about it, kids getting out of college, trying to get a job. It's like, well, you can't work here because you need experience. Well, how am I
Right.
supposed to get experience? And so that's one of the areas where volunteering can be great, because you can get experience as a volunteer. Even if you're not getting paid money for it, then you can apply for a job where you can get paid money and have experience, life experience, job experience. So whatever area of life it is, if you can picture yourself, imagine yourself having something more or better, that's the belief. And then you say, okay, what steps can I take right now and will I take right now to get the experience, so that then I can know it? And at what point does this go from wishful thinking to maybe even a stronger belief, to saying, yes, I absolutely know it because I've been doing it for this long, and so there's no doubt anymore.
And it reminds me of a quote my mom always shared with me. It reminded me about my grandfather, Grandpa Roman. He would always say, there's no effort that goes unrewarded. Going to, well, if you're not doing something, I shared that with somebody else today. They were up against it, financially. And it's like, well, you have these awesome skill sets. What do you want to be doing? I'm like, just go do that. You don't need another certificate behind your name. You've already done it. You've already done dozens of these types of projects for somebody else. You don't need to charge $10,000 right off the bat. Just do the work, and the money will eventually come to you, because it already has.
Right.
So just do what you love, be more you, and connect with that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, another element of that is that when you are being more you, as you say it, you're happier and more fulfilled. And a lot of people find they don't even need some of the physical things they thought they needed,
Right.
because, I think about that with people who have these bucket lists of places they have to go. I mean, I like to travel and I like to go places, but I have Creve Coeur Lake that's right in my neighborhood. And I took a picture the other day and someone said it looked like a, paradise resort that they had been to. So there's lots of ways to be fulfilled with what you have right now and where you are right now, which then can help you to expand to the more that you want to have and to be.
Yeah, I'll say, I'll connect one more thing to 15,000 steps a day. Is I look at that as kind of, what do I like to experience? So even on this little trail, it's about a mile long, close to our house, there's a little bit of terrain, but I just like the experience of being on the trail. Right, it's
Mhm.
quiet. I'm in the woods. I can kind of gather my thoughts. It's almost meditative, and I imagine myself going. It's like training for hiking in some national park somewhere, right? Going out to, whether it be Colorado or even, outside of Vegas in the desert, anywhere. But it's all training for that. So it's like I'm physically ready to do that and experience that. And it
Right.
doesn't cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic experience. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Laurel Clark, for really diving into believing and knowing. If this out there for the audience, if they're interested in finding more about you or finding out more about this metaphysical mindset, we'll certainly create more episodes. But Dr. Clark, where can they find you and information about you?
Thanks, Sean. They can reach me at my website, which is laurelclark.com. They can email me at laurel@laurelclark.com, or check out my Facebook page. It's Laurel Fuller Clark.
All Dr. Clarks. We love it. Very simple, very easy. Well, Dr. Clark, thank you for another fabulous episode. This was really always great. And is there anything you'd like to say before we connect and go to another episode?
Well, as Sean mentioned, he and I met at Medici Media Space, and that is a fantastic place to find resources to activate the universal laws, because you will most likely meet somebody who has something you need, or they need something that you have. So I hope you can join us there too.
Yeah, I just noticed on my screen, Jaleesa Powell, she's there. She's our fabulous media coordinator that's been supplied by Medici, and I use her services as part of my membership. Jaleesa, you got your ears on, or are you with somebody there?
I'm here.
Is there anything you'd like to say as being part of this conversation? Anything that kind of stood out and wowed you, if you heard any of that?
Well, thank you for the awesome shout out. We are always here to help and happy to help. This was an awesome conversation between you and Laurel. I think that you guys touched on parts that people are interested in, and also tying it into the magic that happens here at Medici. That's awesome.
Yeah, right here in St. Louis, and just off of Page and 170 for those that know it. And if you don't, it's not too far away from the airport. So fly on in, come by Medici, and like I always love to end these things. Wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, we may not see you in person, but we'll always see you right here on social media. Thanks for watching, and wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, I can gobbledygook all my words and still have another great episode. So look forward to those with Dr. Laurel Clark. Thanks, Laurel. We appreciate you as always.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. We'll see you soon on the next episode. In 3, 2,